Hello and welcome back to the new lesson. This time, as we said last time, we will talk about returning a function. So functions can return any JavaScript value: numbers, strings, arrays, objects, and even other functions. So when you return a function from another function, the variables you declare persist in the inner function. So let's check out this example. So we have a function with the name counter, in which we want to increment the variable times. So in order to do that, we return another function in which one we add +1 to our current times. When we start at 0, but each time it remembers and adds +1 to the existing value of times, and it returns the current value. So we save the function counter in the variable c. So c becomes a function. So whenever we call it, we have to call it as a function. So we do the function call, and the first time we call it, it adds 1 to the times. The second time adds another 1, so 1 + 1 is 2, the third one is 3, and so on. We can also test it in our console. So if we copy this and we store it in the variable c, now each time we will call the function c, it will add 1 to the count. Okay, so let's see how we could practically use this thing. Remember the last thing in CodeCombat? This was the last mission that we had. And this is the code. Actually, the original code is here, but this is refactored code. Refactoring in programming means that you go through the code and find better solutions, make it shorter, make it more explicit. So we say refactor it. So this is the old code here, and on this side we have a refactored code where we used the thing that we mentioned here, returning a function. So let's check it out. If you remember, we had locations, and on these locations we were building towers, and we were also commanding soldiers and sending them to the certain location. So you see, 2 times we repeated practically the same thing. But we could use a new function for that, and basically create like a counter, but it's not a counter because we don't just increment and add +1, +1, +1, but instead we go through all the positions, and when all the positions are filled, we start with the first one again. So it's not really a counter. We could maybe call it a looper because it loops through the array, but this is what we call it here. We call it make get next. So function make get next has an argument path, which is basically a set of locations. So it's an array of all the locations on which we will send our soldier or our tower builder or however. So this is a path. And inside of this make get next, we create another function, which is get next. And this one basically checks the current location and adds position 1 to it until it reaches the length, and then it starts again. So this basically helps us loop through all the locations in our array. So when we have this little helper, we create two new variables in this example. One is to find the next position for our soldiers, and the other one is to find the next tower. In both cases, locations are the same, but we could have some other locations, and it would still work because it takes this locations argument. So when you make a call, get next, you put in the argument, and this is a path. So it goes through all the locations that you provide for the helper. And how we use this, we practically, instead of writing all this, we can say hero find locations, and we give him this argument next tower, and then whenever the function has to find what is the next position, it actually runs the next tower. So we can check the next tower, runs make get next locations. So make get next, and these are the locations, and it checks what was the last location, adds +1 to the location, and returns the right location to build an arrow tower. Okay, so this is a bit complicated version, but you can see that it saves a lot of time, and it's basically like a little helper factory that can be reused for many purposes. So remember this, save it. You can also create a Titan pad, save stuff there, or maybe we can just copy paste it also in our gist and create a new gist just for that. So let's create a new gist. We call it, let's see what are the names here, Code Combat. Okay, so the name could be, oopsie, just a second, returning a function. Returning a function code combat, and we copy paste the example with the helper. So maybe we can also add helper, just whatever you think it's important for you to remember. Create a public gist, and we will also save it in our gists inside of Code Combat. Didn't throw it in. Oopsie. Okay, so we have it here. So if you want, you can come check in my gists, gist.github.com/esova-ana, and you can find returning a function thing, and you can also find my JavaScript cheat sheet. Okay, so this was about returning a function. Next time, returning an object with functions. See you.